We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and nationwide on the Internet 3 times a week on knookmedia.com. Our guest by phone, an old friend of the program, Elizabeth Skoglund, author, therapist, and counselor. So, Elizabeth, with life on the line, just to shorten it a little bit, Raoul Wallenberg was picked up by the Russians afterwards, and he was in Russia for God knows how long. I mean, there were sightings of him in the 70s that I remember reading about.
At least 72, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because looking at his bio, it says that he was killed in 1947 with a question mark. But again, there were sightings in, like you say, 70 and 72. But the Russians never did let him go. One thing in your book that you talk about is how, on Life on the Line, how killing is no longer a taboo, and you equate it to Nazi Germany. Can you talk a little bit about that? It's no longer a taboo in this country.
You mean euthanasia, that kind of thing?
Well, euthanasia and abortion.
Yeah. Yeah, but not murder. Okay. It is murder, but yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's almost considered noble at times. After all, if you euthanize somebody who's suffering, aren't you doing them a favor? If you kill a baby that may be malformed or maybe a problem to the family who can't afford to feed one more person, or all these little reasons we make up in our mind that are justifications, we have gradually done what Leo Alexander, the man that was the medical advisor at the Nuremberg trials, he said, we will go down a slippery slope if we don't watch it. Whereas one increment becomes okay, so then the next one becomes okay. And we've really almost bottomed out on that.
Well, some of these things, I think, are covered under Obamacare now. What's your value to society? And do we really need to keep you around and keep treating you if you're more of an expense than more of an asset?
The death panels.
Your treatment is really based on how many more years you have of productivity and whether they will indeed be productive, if I understand it correctly.
Well, that's my understanding as well, and it's sort of scary as we get older.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, isn't it, though?
Yeah. Something else, when I keep on thinking about your book, and I keep on thinking about the tie-in with Nazi Germany, and there is a tie-in, Planned Parenthood, and I know they hate this, but Planned Parenthood, their original organization before they changed their name, used Nazi doctors as some of their authors that they had in their newsletters.
Yeah. And when they really got going, noticed that Margaret Sanger's name vanished from the whole thing for years. When I wrote Life on the Line, I had to work to find anything she wrote. And I do have several books now that I've stuck away in some corner somewhere. And now, of course, they bring her name out as some kind of hero.
Well, it appears to me that your new book, Finish Well, coordinates very well with Life on the Line.
The theme, once you do the kind of research I did on Life on the Line, which was about 10 years, I don't mean that I did nothing else, but, a 10-year stint at it, it just keeps coming back. And, during the time I was writing that book, I couldn't even watch a World War II movie. I remember a Sunday afternoon when I just sat down and prayed. I said, God, I can't finish this book. I can't read one more horrible thing. And so it's a funny book. It's not my main life. I mean, I'm out there helping people in therapy, and I'm writing books on biographies and on a lot of them on just spiritual help. Just uplifting things in the spiritual area, in Christianity, in Christ. And yet, I always end up by something, like this program, anything, back with that Life on the Line and the Per Unger book, The Quiet Courage. It's called A Quiet Courage.
We're having a conversation with counselor, therapist, author Elizabeth Skoglund. Elizabeth, one of your other books, and I don't know if I've even had this conversation with you, but it's a book called Before I Die. It talks about end-of-life issues.
Yes.
I actually used that book with a friend of mine who was dying of cancer, and he and his wife had asked me if I would come up Northern California and talk to him a little bit and kind of walk him through the process. And I used that book extensively. I want to thank you for that book.
Oh, well, thank you for telling me. It's just a little booklet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it has a lot of great issues in there. Another booklet that it's funny because as long as I've known you close to 30 years. I didn't know you did a booklet on this, and I want a copy for my wife because she suffers from this chronic fatigue syndrome. I'll Be Better in the Morning. Talk to us a little bit about that booklet.
Well, I got chronic fatigue when I would estimate I got it when I was 21. I was at the end of college of UCLA, and I can tell you where I was at the moment I felt it, which you don't have time for right now. But it's I finally decided I should write my experience on it and what I have been able to research on it. And it's a very difficult disease to have because it doesn't look like a disease.
Yeah, people don't even see you have it. They think you're normal. They don't realize what's going on inside your system.
The fatigue is equal to pain. It's just unbearable at moments. But I've learned to pace. Pacing is the big thing to do. And so I thought I would write this booklet on it. There's one part in it that I think got scrambled in the printing, and I want to take it off Kindle fast and change that one thing. But it's otherwise it's sort of biographical, but it's also from doing what little research you can do right now on it. But the one big change I've noticed in the chronic fatigue area, fibromyalgia got there first, but with chronic fatigue it's happening now. I used to go to a doctor, say for a sore throat or something, and you'd tell them you had chronic fatigue, and they'd look at you and say, yeah, well, you're probably tired out. Nobody ever took it as anything but either tiredness, just plain old tiredness, or psychological. So you learn not to talk about it. And I had a stroke 2 years ago, and I went to a neurologist who I consider to be probably the top one in the field, maybe top in the whole state. I don't know. He's an excellent man. And I thought, well, he won't believe in chronic fatigue, but who cares? He's got, the rest of the knowledge. And there was a moment of break there, and I said, I want to ask you a question. It won't determine whether I come to you. It won't determine my opinion of you, but I need to know what you think. I said, do you believe that chronic fatigue exists? And he stopped everything he was doing. So he slammed his fist down on the desk and went, and he wasn't that type of man. He said, anybody who does not believe chronic fatigue is totally a disease and real is either an idiot or hasn't done his research.
Oh, I like that.
I loved it.
I like that. My wife has fibromyalgia. Funny you mentioned that, but as well as a chronic fatigue syndrome. What can somebody do other than energy medication and the normal medications that that go along with it?
Well, for me, it's been more pacing. I find myself going beyond what I can do, and I don't realize it totally. I think I can do a little more, and then the next day it all crashes.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah. It's you really think you've gotten by with it, I think that's for me that has been the main thing to do. There's light stuff you can do, like if you swim, but you don't swim vigorously. You shouldn't overdo in the exercise area, but maybe do slight things like a slow walk or a light swim. I don't think they really have good answers yet. Now, in the fibromyalgia area, they might have some better answers in terms of pain. In chronic fatigue, they have been slow in getting that research going. And I think it's going fairly quickly now. But this is not yet, got a total answer, but it sure helps to have a doctor who believes in it and then can give you little helps here and there.
Yeah, exactly. In the short time we have left, we got about a minute and a half left. Tell us about More Precious Than a Sparrow.
Well, I knew I had written Life on the Line, and I've written the book on Pierre Unger, and I've written the Holocaust creeps in a lot in my writing, and I realized that it was important. We're getting almost negative at moments about like euthanasia and abortion now. I'm thoroughly against them, but we can get so against something that we turn people off and they won't listen. And I decided that I needed to write something that was a positive back door to the same topics. So it's a series of almost vignettes, like 3-4 pages, on the value of life, like the baby who died after 18 hours. What value were those 18 hours? The virtual fish that had confused a child as to what was real and what wasn't. Real life is real life, and it's very valuable. A virtual fish is not. The Alzheimer's person his wife has Alzheimer's, and everybody says, you've got to hospitalize her. She's just gone. And he said, no, every night when she's in bed with me, I look at her, and I remember her as I had her. And ironically, she died of a heart attack 3 months later.
Elizabeth,
he had that time.
Yeah, that's a great place to stop, and he had that time. Elizabeth, I appreciate the time. Sorry I have to cut you off here, but
no, I understand.
I highly, highly recommend her books. Look at her website, Elizabeth Skoglund. Elizabeth, thank you for the time, and we'll see you in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.